Hello everyone, we are back with another episode. I'm Christelle and hi, we are officially in a new era. Uranus has moved into Gemini. This happened around the 25th to the 26th of April, just before 2 a.m. UK time. I don't know if you felt it, but I certainly did. I was wired. I'll explain as to why I was wired later on. It'll probably make more sense, but this is one of those transits that you don't really wait to feel. You're just already in it. And what we're entering in is not a short phase. Yeah, Uranus spends about 7 years in a sign and it only comes back to the same place every 84 years. So this is generational. This is environmental. This is something that will shape how we think, communicate and build over the next decade. So I want to talk about what it actually means. Not just conceptually, but practically, especially if you're building something, creating something, or trying to stay mentally clear in a world that is about to get a lot louder. Yes. But before we go forward, I do want to take a minute to acknowledge the fixed signs. You guys deserve a medal because you're just coming out of something huge with Uranus moving through Taurus over the past several years. Taurus, Leos, Scorpios and Aquarius have all been experiencing disruption in very real and serious ways. This is no laughing matter. This is life-changing. And I think it's fair to say that, the energy wasn't subtle. Things that felt stable didn't stay stable. Things you thought you could rely on shifted very quickly out of nowhere. And in business, that might have looked like income changing unexpectedly, or structures no longer working, or being pushed into pivots that you didn't necessarily choose. And for fixed energy, that's not comfortable. Fixed signs are designed to build slowly, deliberately, and with the intention of maintaining something. But Uranus doesn't maintain, guys. It disrupts so that something more aligned can emerge. So if you're a fixed sign or you have strong fixed placements, there is something here that I actually want you to take in. You've been trained. Whether you wanted it or not, you've been trained in adaptability. You've learned how to move when things don't go to plan. You've learned how to let go of control, even if that felt uncomfortable. And now there is a slight sense that the baton is being handed over. You can excel a little bit. Not completely, but you can excel a little bit. Because the intensity of direct disruption is now shifting towards the mutable signs. Yes. Hi guys. So this is where things get really interesting, because Uranus is now in Gemini, and Gemini is the mind. It's communication, chatting, information, learning, perception, attention. So what Uranus is now disrupting is not just your external world, it's your internal one. Now, historically, when Uranus has moved through Gemini, we've seen very clear patterns. The last time this happened was during the 1940s, around the Second World War, and what became crucial during that time was communication technology. Radar, early computing, code breaking. Basically, information became power. Before that, in the mid 1800s, during another Uranus in Gemini cycle, we saw the expansion of the telegraph and a massive increase in literacy. So there is a pattern here. Every time Uranus moves through Gemini, communication evolves rapidly. Information becomes central and the way people think begins to change. So when we bring that into now, it's not difficult to see where this is going, right? AI is already accelerating, and it's going to accelerate even further. The way we build, the way we communicate and create is going to become faster, more automated, more immediate. You're going to see new platforms emerge, existing platforms lose dominance, and entirely new ways of sharing information take over. And education is going to change as well. Work is going to change. And for many people, especially in some traditional or structured roles, this will feel destabilizing. But for founders and creators, this is not just disruption, it's opportunity. Please remember that. It's opportunity. Because what Uranus in Gemini rewards is not just knowledge, it rewards how you think, how quickly you can adapt, how clearly you can communicate, and most importantly, just how well you can filter. Now, let's talk about the mutable signs. That's Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces, because this is where the energy is now concentrated. And I'm going to say something that might sound slightly reassuring, okay? You are actually built for this. Yes, you are. Can you guess why? Because mutable signs are adaptive by nature. They are not rigid. They are not fixed. They respond, they shift, they evolve. So while this transit may feel intense, it is not entirely foreign to you. That said, Uranus amplifies everything. So what this can look like is your mind becoming even more active than usual. You've got more ideas, more curiosity, more directions you can go in, more things that feel interesting, exciting, or relevant. But also, this is where it becomes challenging because there's more potential for distraction, more potential for fragmentation, more difficulty committing to one path when 10 others feel equally compelling. And Gemini in particular is probably the most naturally equipped to handle this, because Gemini already thinks quickly, it already connects ideas very quickly, it already moves between concepts with ease. It can do that. So in many ways, Gemini becomes the archetype of this era because it's fast, adaptive, and communicative. It can handle Uranus in Gemini. But even for Gemini, there is a limit because speed without direction becomes noise. So for all mutable signs, and especially if you are building something, the key word for this transit is discernment. Not doing more, not chasing every idea, but knowing what to engage in and what to ignore. Because here's what's going to happen if you don't. Alright? Your attention will get pulled into multiple directions. You'll start things and then you won't finish them. You'll feel busy, but your busyness won't be clear, and over time that creates a kind of low-level mental exhaustion that's hard to name, but it feels very real. Because here's what's going to happen if you don't. Your attention will get pulled in multiple directions. You'll start things and not finish them. You'll feel busy but not clear, and over time that creates a kind of low-level mental exhaustion that's hard to name, but feels very real. So systems here become very essential. And I want to be very clear about what I mean by systems, because this isn't about rigid schedules or over-structuring yourself. This is about creating containers for your mind. For example, having specific times when you consume information and specific times when you create, not consistently switching between the two, which is me being a Pisces and heavily mutable. I do that. But switching between the two is what fragments your thinking, or having a place where your ideas go. You know, having a notebook, voice notes, something external. Because if everything stays in your mind, it becomes overwhelming. Or even something as simple as deciding in advance what you are focusing on this week, this month, this quarter, so that when your new ideas come in, and they will, you're going to get loads, you don't immediately abandon what you're doing. You acknowledge them, but you don't chase all of them. Because the real challenge of Uranus in Gemini is not lack of opportunity, it's having too much of it. And this is where your nervous system comes in, because increased information equals increased stimulation. And increased stimulation, if it's not managed, becomes overstimulation. So you may notice that your mind feels more active, that it's harder to switch off, that you feel slightly wired even when you're not doing anything. And this is not something to ignore, it's something to work with. So grounding becomes crucial and a big part of your strategy. It must. Not separate from your work, don't do that, but integrate into it. Taking breaks from input, spending time away from screens, allowing your mind to process what it has taken in. Because clarity doesn't come from constant consumption, it comes from integration. Now, one more layer I want to add here because it's important, okay? Uranus in Gemini is not operating alone. It's making supportive aspects to Pluto and Neptune. So what we're seeing is not just change in the mind, but change in systems, power structures, and collective imagination. This is a period where ideas don't just stay as ideas, they scale, they spread, and they influence. So if you are someone who has something to say, something to build, something to create, this is not a time to hold back, but this is a time to become more precise, more intentional, more aware of how you use your mind. So I want to leave you with this, because I always like to leave a bit of a reflection at the end of my episodes. As we move into this new era where information is increasing, attention is fragmented, and the pace is accelerating, what would it look like for you to become more selective? Not necessarily slower, okay? Just sharper. More aware, essentially, of what you're engaging in. More deliberate in what you're creating. What would that look like for you? Because over the next 7 years, the people who thrive are not the ones who do the most. They are the ones who can think clearly in the middle of noise. And that being said, I'll speak to you in the next episode. Take care. Bye bye.